Prologue. Julian Banfield breathed in deeply as he stood in his kitchen. He simply loved the mingling smells of fresh brewed coffee and frying bacon for a late-night snack. "Enjoy it one last time," he told himself as he turned the bacon with a spatula. His wife, Sheila, would get home from her book tour in just a little while, possibly before he went to bed. Julian needed to make sure not to leave any evidence that he'd been indulging in bacon and other high-cholesterol luxuries during her absence. He reminded himself to spray the kitchen thoroughly with air freshener to get rid of the lingering, delicious smell. As much as he loved Sheila, and as happy as they had always been together, he had to admit he'd enjoyed her absence during the last week. After 35 years of marriage, he couldn't say that he'd especially missed her, nor did he imagine that she'd especially missed him. Instead, it had been an interesting change, probably for both of them, and it had been refreshing not to have to listen to her gentle but persistent scolding about his mild vices and indulgences. He'd been able to eat donuts and pizza, skip exercise sessions at the gym, and have an extra bourbon or two after dinner. All that was going to end when Sheila got back. "Seize the moment," he told himself. He removed the bacon from the pan and broke a couple of eggs into the bubbling bacon fat. Then he pushed a slice of bread down into the toaster and poured himself some orange juice. When the eggs looked ready, he flipped them over for just a few seconds and flipped them back again, pleased with the flawlessly translucent white film over the yolk. He scooped the eggs onto a plate just in time for the toast to pop up. He set the plate of bacon, eggs, and toast on the kitchen table, then sat down and smeared sinful gobs of butter on the toast. Another luxury he was going to have to forego when Sheila returned. As he began to eat, he found himself thinking about tomorrow's upcoming therapy sessions. His first appointment in the morning was with a young man named Dennis Jones, whose impulse control issues had led to his recent arrest for shoplifting. Julian had done his best to convince a judge that Dennis's kleptomania was a matter of illness rather than criminality, an obsessive-compulsive disorder and not a failure of moral character. After all, the kid generally stole things that he didn't even want. But the judge was still on the fence about Dennis's case, so in order to keep him out of jail, Julian was going to have to get him to change his behaviour for good. Tomorrow's task would be to persuade Dennis to add naltrexone to his medications, which currently included fluoxetine and bupropion. Dennis was neurotic and not especially intelligent. Although he wasn't given to delusions or paranoia, certain fringe online conspiracy sites had convinced him that the government was using psychiatric medications for mind control. Julian hoped that today he could talk him out of such a ridiculous idea. Julian grunted with annoyance at the trouble this sort of thing was causing. "The internet sure hasn't made my job any easier," he thought. As far as he was concerned, social networking and other online activities were undermining the mental health of society as a whole. Sheila had adapted well to all this digital novelty, but sometimes Julian felt like a relic of simpler, saner times. Worse, he knew that his younger colleagues considered him to be some old fogey who couldn't keep pace with the changes in the world. He looked forward to retirement, which was still at least 2 or 3 years away. Savouring his snack, he found himself envying Sheila. She'd been able to give up her own family therapy practice after writing a best-selling book about the very issues that troubled Julian. And now she was getting to travel around the country, speaking and lecturing and signing books, and just generally basking in the public's admiration. It must be nice, Julian thought. But he was determined not to give in to jealousy. After all, Sheila's publishing royalties were going to make both of their senior years a lot easier, and he was happy that she was enjoying her new life. Julian finished eating and took his plate, glass and silverware over to the sink. As he started to wash the items, he thought he heard a noise over the sound of running water. He turned off the water and listened.
Para seguir escuchando este audiolibro gratuitamente, haz clic en el enlace de la descripción y podrás escucharlo completo sin coste gracias a la prueba de 30 días de Audible.